Right, let's get going with this list of bikes that promised to transform mountain biking, but failed. Starting with...
Well, a decade ago, Leo Kokanen's Poly brand burst onto the scene with an innovative approach to manufacturing and some very progressive geometry, Mark. At the time, the Finnish factory in Martyn, just outside of Jyväskylä, my pronunciation might be a little bit off on that one, seemed to be redefining the future with this innovative approach to building mountain bikes.
That's right, and Poly have been very bold in their unique design and build decisions. Most striking, the belief that milling their bike frame and linkage parts from billet aluminium is the ultimate material and manufacturing process for an MTB.
You're right, it is certainly a beautiful bike, especially in the flesh. The process involves CNCing the frame into two halves and then bonding the two pieces together with aircraft-grade glue. The finished frame and parts are treated with electrophoretic coating, which is an extremely efficient way of getting a uniform finish and a very high standard of corrosion resistance.
Yeah, the process has not gripped the imagination of other brands to build in a similar way, so we can say it failed in that respect. However, Poly are a brand with a very distinct personality that many riders still love to this day.
Next up, Martyn, the Cannondale Raven was perhaps a precursor to the bonding idea taken up by Poly. Maybe it influenced it in a certain way. Launched in 1998, the approach was very different to anything out there. An aluminium skeleton structure created the centre of the frame build. This skeleton structure was then bonded in a sandwich between two carbon fibre skins that once combined created the body of the frame.
It was a very bold design from Cannondale that mirrored the already iconic Super V design, which I loved. However, this departure in manufacturing technique created a bike that had a strange hollow-sounding ride and looks that were an acquired taste. It looked like a bike from the future, but ultimately was discontinued in 2002.
Shame. Okay, Martyn, this next one's a bit of a looker. It's the PRST-1.
Love it.
It was such an exciting looking bike, designed and prototyped by John Whyte and Adrian Ward back in '97. This bike is actually the reason Whyte bikes came into existence. Previously, they had designed suspension bikes for Martyn, but when Martyn declined to produce their ambitious new design, they created Whyte bikes to turn it from dream into reality.
And they did. The PRST-1 used a monocoque frame with a linkage suspension fork that promised to eliminate many of the downsides of the far more common telescopic forks, such as steepening head angle under braking, the flex of forks at the time, and stiction caused by the bushings and dampings of the fork.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, there's a few things in there, isn't there? But look, the PRST-1's front linkage had a different path of movement through its stroke and maintained a wheelbase length far better. The fork legs, as we'll kind of call them, were chunkier than the suspension forks of the time, so offered much greater stiffness. And the sealed bearings and sort of plus shock eliminated the stiction issues to boot. I like it, shock boot, good one.
Yeah, love it.
It looked wild and smacks of a concept bike, but amazingly, it did actually go into manufacture, selling 3,000 of them.
Yeah, it felt like it was more than that. Ultimately, the improvements in suspension technology reduced some of the downsides of traditional telescopic suspension, and the idea of linkage forks never really took off. Despite the failure in transforming the MTB world of design, it was an iconic design that still looks incredible to this day.
Wow, this really is an incredible idea. The Slingshot is still available today, but the original design goes back to 1982. The many advantages of the Slingshot design are questionable,
to say the least. The brand truly believes in the stainless steel spring-loaded downtube concept. Some of the advantages you can expect are increased lateral flex, an advantage, unique ride and feel, energy return where each bump is turned into something of a boost thanks to the energy return in the sprung-loaded cable, which gives you flex as suspension. Most worryingly is the claim of the unique effect of inchworming, where the frame is able to flex as you pedal and basically return the pedal stroke energy as a small kick forwards from the return of energy. Yep.
Okay, well, weirdly, it it hasn't caught on. However, the basic idea of energy return is something that could be revisited by manufacturers. Will there ever be another cable design like the Slingshots? I doubt it. I don't think so.
When talking of the coolest mountain bikes of all time, this bike, the Honda RN01, is always heavily debated as the number one.
The 01.
Yeah, with Showa front forks, a beautifully crafted raw aluminium monocoque frame, the Honda looked like nothing else. It was out in the wild from 2003 to 2007, and throughout that time was kept under a lot of secrecy. The carbon-housed frame-mounted transmission gearbox was always a point of discussion. Originally said to be for reduced unsprung mass in the original press release, the design allowed the rider to change gears when not pedaling, and it was finally discovered to be nothing more than a quite standard derailleur and cassette within the carbon housing.
Yeah, it was just a mech in a box. Amazing. With the iconic Greg Minnaar on board, winning World Cups, backed by his teammates. He had some good ones back in the day. Brendan Fairclough, Matti Laikkonen. The Honda G-Cross setup was groundbreaking, buddy.
Yeah.
And definitely felt like a moment when all downhill bikes were about to metamorphosize into these motocross-esque designs that screamed of innovation.
I remember the time.
It was good.
The RN01 never made it into manufacture, and although deemed a successful endeavour for Honda, they cancelled the programme, never to enter the MTB downhill scene again.
R.I.P. Honda.
Oh, come
the
back.
mountain bikes.
Come back.
Yeah. Right. Hold on, people. In the flesh, this bike, by structure, is an unbelievable looking bike. If the PRST-1 had an illegitimate child, then we have found it. The linkage front suspension is called WTF and boasts to reward the rider the harder it is pushed. Now, this is due to the trail measurement of the bike maintaining under load.
Yeah, now, the trail being the point where the front wheel touches the ground to where the steering axis intersects the ground.
Okay, well basically this equals less wheelbase reduction compared to a normal telescopic fork. Well, these facts can enable a very stable feeling, and it is something structure shouts about. In fact, they say the WTF linkage is faster, smoother, and as mentioned, more stable.
Yeah. The SC W1 Foundation Series build comes in at £8,000, and that is not a bad price for a full carbon frame, carbon fork, carbon linkage and rear triangle. It's a lot of bike for that money, but like other bikes on this list, it fails to make an impact on the industry.
Mark, linkage forks keep trying though, don't they?
They do. How about this for a statement? Quicker uphill, faster downhill, adjust geometry whilst riding. That is the aim and stated advantage of Variangle bikes.
That's a hell of a name, isn't it? Right, now, their new Mark II bike has rapid change geometry achieved via a 4-star lead screw and needle roller thrust bearings, which allows the rider to quickly adjust whilst on the move. Each turn of the handle gives a 2-degree change in the geometry, ride height stays the same throughout the range of adjustment as well. That's what they're saying.
Wow, the Variangle headstock design is very simple and very clever. The ride height remains the same whilst you move through the different options. So on downhill, you can slacken that head angle whilst also lengthening the wheelbase. The opposite is also possible on the climbs.
Okay, I'm getting it, I'm getting it. This idea is niche though, and unlikely to impact the mountain bike industry. Although it is nice to see boutique brands like Variangle trying innovative ideas that may send ripples through the zeitgeist. I mean, yeah, you never know.
You never know.
You never know.
Now, the Klein Mantra was an era-defining bike in the latter half of the 1990s, with that massive central torque beam top tube and distinctive lack of down tube. The Mantra had an unreal silhouette. The design was aimed at creating a super light full suspension MTB that could climb like a hardtail thanks to the unified rear triangle URT design.
Oh, the URT design. I wondered when we'd get to it. Unfortunately, the very high bottom bracket and unnerving ride on downhills made for something of a bucking bronco of a bike, should we say. It was born in '96 and stuck around in, various forms, including carbon editions all the way up till 2001, bud.
Yeah, as I said, it was an era-defining bike, a high-spec beauty that everyone wanted. Kinda. Many people loved it or loved the idea of it, but in truth, no brand ever followed the mantra.
I think in Black Math Bikes, we're talking about how two of our previously mentioned bikes have mated, spawned something kind of wonderful, but unlikely to catch on.
You never know, if Polly got jiggy with the Variangle, then we might get something like this futuristic looking bike. It utilises an upturned dropper post to allow the frame to alter its geometry from a 140mm climbing setting to a 170mm downhill setting.
All right, well, I've got something. This is in their words. Lowered offers 170mm travel, a low BB, slacker head angle, and minimal pedal kickback. Raised, it provides 140mm travel, a higher BB, less sag, a steeper head angle, and increased anti-squat.
Yeah, it's an incredible looking thing. It is an extraordinary looking bike and a brilliant idea. It has the feel, however, of a bike that will sit on a list like this forevermore. The beautiful build and CNC work is testament to an ingenious group of bike builders. Let's hope they put their black math brains together in the future for a deserved hit in the MTB market.
To finish, another wow moment. The amazing Allsop Softride. Designed by James Allsop and David Callop in 1991 with their power curve model. However, Mark, its suspension system had been previously launched at the 1989 Interbike show.
Ages ago.
A long time.
The striking beam replaced the traditional top tube and seat tube arrangement seen on most bikes all bikes. Instead, the Softride attached near the front of the top tube and housed the seat on the end of the sprung cantilever. Many riders complained of a ride that bobbed and bucked. Many others liked the comfort feel of the seated experience, combined with the essentially hardtail bike when out on the saddle.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Some brands adopted the design, most notably Ritchie Bikes, that launched in '95 its light beam model.
Yeah.
Eventually, the UCI banned the design, which might be blamed for its demise, and Softride's eventual cessation of production in 2006.
That was quite a run, but rather than any bans, I think the probable death of Softride was just the fact that suspension systems quickly developed into performance components rather than a feature of comfort while seated.
Yes, and what an incredible list of bike tripe and some genius that was, all with their distinctive attempts to change the course of mountain bike design. Some, you could argue, I think, did have an influence on future ideas, but I think we have to leave these behind in the history books forever.
If we missed a bike or component that deserves to be on the list, then tell us all about it in the comments below. Enlighten us all with your knowledge of the failed attempts to transform our sport.
And they were some good attempts. Thanks for watching, and we will hopefully see you again soon. See ya!